Hey everyone, let's take a look at the last paragraph from chapter 4, 4.3. We're going to take a look at charts, diagrams and percentages. And the theories in this paragraph are a bit weird. They don't really explain anything new to you. They more say, oh, you have to watch out for this, oh, you have to use this like this. And the first thing that you should be wary of is that hopefully you're all able to visualize what those different charts and diagrams are that they talk about. So, for example, at theory A, they say, well, there are all sorts of ways to visually represent data, and they give you examples. The only new one that they explain is combined bar charts or stacked bar charts, which are given right here. But all the others, pictograms, bar charts, pie charts, line charts, histograms, stem and leaf, they have all been discussed in second grade. If you find it difficult to work with those, take a look at the videos that are recorded for second grade. They're also on YouTube. Take a look at the playlist for Vwo3 chapter 6. If you want to have a more in-depth explanation of how those work, of how you can draw one. Okay. It's also good to know when to use different charts. When I have a data set, visualize it using a pie chart, and when do I use a line chart? And they to give you an example here. For example, a pie chart is a clear representation of percentage distribution. A line chart shows data developed over time. I think a line chart is the easiest one to recognize. If you have something over time, it's almost always the best to visualize it using a line chart. But let's just practice with a few examples. And oftentimes there's not just one clear answer, there are often multiple different charts that you could actually use to visualize something. So exercise 35 is about this. Which visual representation would be the best to use for the following research results? In some cases more than one answer is possible. To help you out a bit, I've given you a list from which you're going to choose the different charts. Okay, and I'm also going to comment on the choices that the book gives, because sometimes I think, yeah, well, technically correct, but do you know when to use it and when not? Because the example that they give sometimes is a bit it's not yet enough to know which kind of chart you would actually use. For example, the petrol usage of 5 car brands. First of all, I'm not a big fan of pictograms. Pictograms is when they use small little images to visualize something. It's sometimes used in papers, I guess. It's one of the things you can use here. You can use this with a pictogram. I would vastly prefer a bar chart here. Remember that you cannot use pie chart here. Pie chart is always something that visualizes 100%. Here we're only talking about the petrol usage, so it's going to be quite weird if you put this in a circle, because then everything has to add up to 100%, and then it's more difficult to read. Also know the difference between a bar chart and a histogram, right? Those two are oftentimes confused. Remember, in a bar chart, underneath the bars are labels. They're talking about something. So for example, the bar chart is about the petrol usage of 5 cars. So you have 5 bars. Underneath every bar is the label for each car. For example, this one is Mercedes, this one is a Volkswagen, this one is a Nissan, etc. While in an histogram, underneath the bars are always numbers. Okay, always. And another difference is that in bar charts, the bars are not touching each other, and in a histogram they are. Okay? So here we use bar charts and not histograms, because underneath we want to label them using the car brands. B. The annual export from the Netherlands to France over the last 10 years. Every time I see something over time, over the last 10 years, I'm going to go and take a look at, well, I think I have to use a line chart here. Always the best chart to use. Yeah, always is a big word, 99% of the time. The milk production in EU countries in 2018. And I think here are multiple choices that you can use, and I'm going to comment on all 3 that the book gives. I think a bar chart is okay. Hopefully you don't have too many countries, because then your bar chart can be quite long. Pictograms, again, I'm not a big fan of pictograms, but I guess you could use pictograms and then use milk cans or something to describe how many milk every country has sold. A pie chart, I think, has my preference here, actually. Do know, again, this has the same disadvantage with bar charts, that if you have a lot of countries, you get a lot of sectors. But oftentimes what you see with pie charts is that then the countries that has produced the least amount of milk are taken together in one category, right? All other countries are done in one sector. And I would prefer this. In a pie chart, it's easier to see how it is distributed. So, for example, it's easier to see what share each country has, but it's, I think, easier to work with percentages than in a bar chart. Oftentimes you work with absolute numbers. That's okay. I think both are okay here. Again, a pictogram works, but it's not my preference. D. Your height on your birthday as measured by your parents every year since your birth. A. Something over time. Guess what? I think I'm going to use a line chart here. Okay? Again, over time, use a line chart. E. The composition of the House of Commons in 2018 by political party. I think actually, and I give the same three choices as with C. Again, pictogram, yeah, right. I'm more interested in why bar chart or why pie chart. I think here they're both equally correct. Pie charts, it's easier to see what the distribution is compared to each other. Bar chart, I think, is more often used in papers for this kind of topics, but again, both are correct. Again, bar chart, not a histogram, because you label the bars underneath with, in this case, political parties, not with numbers. The ages of teachers at your school. And this is going to be quite the list, don't you think? Because, for example, I think there are teachers who are maybe 22, 23 years old, and this goes all the way up to, yeah, maybe 70, 75 even, maybe even higher, depending on which school you're going to take a look at. And not every number is going to occur that often. So, therefore, bar charts and pie charts, I think, are not good choices here. I think the best one here is using a stem and leaf diagram, because then you can categorize them in tens, for example, from 0 to 10, from 10 to 20, etc. So I think that's the best choice that you can use here. Okay, from this list at least. There was F, the ages of teachers at your school, because there is a very big list with all amounts not happening that often. Use a stem and leaf diagram. Government expenditure divided by ministry. Yeah, I don't know why the book now says, well, you better not use a pictogram here. But I do agree with bar charts and pie charts again. They both work very well. Both would be okay. Again, for the same reasons I given at E and C. The ages of students at your school. And now you might say, hey, that looks a lot the same like F. But remember, the ages of students at your school, the list of ages is going to be not as wide, not as big, not as large as the age of teachers. I think maybe we start at 11, and I think we stop at a max of 19, I don't think, maybe 20, I don't know actually. And therefore, I think using a stem and leaf diagram doesn't work that well here. Because then you just get a very large list, for example, with 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, etc. That's not going to work. An histogram here works very well, because every bar you can just name 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, etc. And then the height will give you a clear view of how much everything occurs. Pie charts, I think, is very doable here as well, with every sector being an age. And then you will find a good result as well. Don't use a bar chart here, right? Because what are you going to put underneath the bars? I think numbers, and those numbers are then going to change into a histogram. The population of the Netherlands in 1900, 1910, etc., 2010. This is something over time. Hey, line chart. Over time, use a line chart. The number of mistakes made by your classmates in a 50 question multiple choice test. And again, because there are so many different possibilities that you can get, I think a stem and leaf diagram gives the best overview here. Again, pie charts, you would have much too many sectors. Bar charts or histograms don't work either. Line charts is not over time. Pictograms, why would you even use those to start with? Okay, so stem and leaf diagrams, I think, is the best choice here. And hopefully this gives you a bit of a better oversight of when to use which charts. And remember, those are not all charts. Next year you get a lot. If you choose Mathematics A, I should say. I don't think if you choose Mathematics B, you don't find that many new charts and diagrams. With Mathematics A, you will. And one diagram that you will both figure out how they work are box plots. Or that's, I think, the more Dutch name is called box plot. I think in English it's called a box and whisker diagram. Again, you will figure out how those work next year. Bye bye. See you for 4.3 Theory B.